Welcome to School of Seeds, a podcast based in Beacon and inspired by the Hudson Valley. We talk about gardening tips, nature information, and outdoor adventures. Find us at schoolofseeds.com for more information. Spring is officially here in Beacon. I've seen many beautiful plants in people's yards throughout the years. Daffodils, tulips, but what I haven't seen often are native ones. And that's despite living in Beacon for over 20 years. Sadly, many plants that are native to New York are in decline or locally extinct. In New York City alone, 2,179 species of plants were identified, but only 1,359 were native. In other words, almost half of the plant species were invasive. One way to combat this problem is to bring more native flowers into our own gardens. Having just a few will attract bees, butterflies, and birds. Lots of them are deer-resistant too, so consider giving them a try. Their unique shapes, beautiful colors, and resilience to the local climate are worth it. Plus, you can support pollinators that make our local food supply possible. Even if you don't have a garden or you simply don't have the space to bring in more plants, you can support this effort by giving the gift of a native plant to plant lovers in your life. All right, let's get started. The first native New York flower on our list is Turks Cap Lily. It has a beautiful orange flower with brown specks, and like many native New York flowers, they have this beautiful downward bloom where the flower looks a lot like a bell. And these bell-like flowers hang from a thin, elegant stem, so peaceful looking like many lilies, and they're a great splash of color given how vivid their shade of orange is. They attract butterflies and hummingbirds. Unfortunately, deer do love this particular flower, so you may want to protect them in a greenhouse or put them in a screened container where they aren't so easy to access. Perhaps even simply secure your garden a little better. But if you don't want to do that, these can also be grown indoors as well. They love full sun to deep shade. They are hardy in zones 3 to 9. And they're also known as the American tiger lily, the swamp lily, the turban lily, or lily royal. The second flower on our list is Virginia bluebells. Now, as the name suggests, these flowers look a lot like bells. They have a trumpet-like shape that is very adorable. The flowers are small and bloom in little bunches. And the cool thing about this flower is that when the flower buds come out, they initially start out as this very kind of pink-purple color. And then as the bud grows, it becomes more purple. And by the time they bloom, they form into baby blue bells that are really gorgeous to look at. They attract bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies. They are deer resistant. They love partial sun to full shade. And they're an early spring bloomer that goes dormant in midsummer. They're also hardy in zones 3 to 8. The next flower on our list is one of my favorites. I didn't know this was native to New York, and it's one of those specimens where you look at it and you're like, wow, nature came up with that. That's amazing. And it is turkey corn, but it's more often known as bleeding heart, specifically wild bleeding heart. And as the name suggests, these flowers do look like bleeding hearts. So far, I've seen them in red, pink, and black. There's also another plant that's related to them called Squirrel Corn, and they're actually white and look very similar to the bleeding heart. And these flowers grow on these kinds of creeping vines And one branch can have all these little hearts growing on them. Really nice for Valentine's Day, but these really should be kept outside where they can spread out, which is what they like to do. The bleeding heart attracts hummingbirds, is deer resistant, loves partial shade, and it can bloom from April to fall, and they're hardy in zones 2 through 9. The next flower on our list is another one that I never knew was native to New York, and that is the Crested Iris. The Crested Iris is mostly white, but it has some splashes of purple and a little bit of yellow and orange as well. And they attract hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees. They are deer resistant. They love full sun to partial shade. They bloom from early to late spring. And they are hardy in zones 5 to 8. The next flower on our list is called Spring Beauty. And its classic look is these small, whitish pink flowers that grow in little bunches, and they bloom in early to late spring. Spring Beauty attracts bees and butterflies, is deer resistant, loves full sun to partial shade, and is hardy in zones 5 to 9. The next flower on our list is Bloodroot, and its name comes from the fact that its sap looks like a deep red, which is similar to blood. It is used as a natural red dye as well. These are delicate white flowers with yellow centers and very aesthetic rounded leaves. They attract bees, are deer resistant, love part shade to full shade, and they can bloom as early as late winter when there's mild weather, until May or even June. They are hardy in zones 3 to 8. The next flower on this list is one that I find to be amazing. It's called Dutchman's Breeches, and when I first saw them, I thought they kind of looked like upside down angels or even upside down teeth, because they're these white flowers with a little bit of yellow towards the bottom. And it's so interesting, the kinds of shapes that nature creates. And on one stem, there can be multiple white flowers to look at. And they don't flower for very long, but they are very useful. They attract bees, are deer resistant, they love partial shade, and they bloom from March to April. They are also hardy in zones 3 to 8. The next flower on our list looks really cool. It's called the trout lily. It's also known as the dogtooth violet. And they are yellow-orange flowers, and then their leaves look really interesting. Depending on how the light hits it, it can look like splashes of black, but it can also look like splashes of dark green. Similar to other flowers on this list, the lily has a downward bloom that looks really elegant. It attracts bees, is deer resistant, loves part shade to full shade, and blooms from March to May. It's hardy in zones 3 to 9. The next flower on our list is the yellow blue bead lily. Now, these are super cool to me because they send up these stalks that put out all these small yellow flowers. They look just like mini lilies. And then when those flowers are pollinated, they become these round, glossy-looking blue berries. The thin stalks of this lily make both the small flowers and berries look very beautiful. The yellow blue bead lily attracts bees, is deer resistant, it loves light shade, it blooms from May to June, and it's hardy in zones 2 to 7. So, did any of the flowers catch your interest? I hope that you're inspired to research them and add some to your garden. They are truly underrated. And by the way, why don't we talk about native plants more? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. By the way, if you want to know the names of more native flowers and you would like to support this podcast, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can become a member for as little as $5. And we'll send you a list of over 70 native New York flower names, including their botanical names. It's a great source of inspiration for your next native garden project. Our Patreon members also get other perks depending on their tier of giving, like our garden planning guide, succulents for beginners guide, and more. If you'd like to hear more episodes like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to receive notifications from us. You can also find us at schoolofseeds.com for more information. And remember, everything starts small. So go ahead and do something small today. Thank you for watching our first episode.